Teachers, students, again, my name is Shaul, Abdiel, Israel, and I'm the elder at United Kingdom of Israel congregation. We are based in Newport News, Virginia, but we have locations in Chicago, Baltimore, and we also have one here in Atlanta as well. It's a pleasure to be here, so I definitely want to thank you all for having us. And I pray and I hope that you find today's PowerPoint presentation to be meaningful and that it's eye-opening as well. Ultimately, when we look at the history of our people, the average person will begin so-called Black history one of two places. 9 times out of 10, it'll be conducted from the plantation forward. Then there's that time where it may begin after the plantation, where you go into things like the Jim Crow era. You go into the Civil Rights Movement up into the modern day times. However, us as so-called Black African Americans, Negroes in America, we have a history and a culture that's much richer than the cotton fields. We have a history that predates this land itself. Myself, as well as a team of brothers that I work with, we have done a diligent study in the area of Hebraic studies. We said we have to find out who we were. We have to understand the plight of our people, where we've come from, where we've been, where we are, and ultimately where we hope to be. So, again, I pray and I hope that today's presentation will be one that is highly educational and that you'll walk away with some tidbits of information that you can possibly share with others. Today's learning objectives. Our learning objective for today is to describe the hidden history of African Americans prior to the transatlantic slave trade. Our other objective is to identify how various primary sources, along with biblical facts and archaeological proofs, support the claim. So we're going to go down the road in history here. We're going to examine archaeological findings. We're going to examine written, documented history. And we're going to ultimately shed some light on a subject that has been hidden and masked from a great part of the population. So my question becomes, who are the Jews today? Who are the Jews today? Somebody may say, well, what does it matter? Well, it matters a whole lot, because when we examine a book like the Bible, some people use it as religious text. However, as being one of the #1 bestsellers worldwide, we also find that the Bible is a history book with a history that's irrefutable. In the book of Romans, the 3rd chapter, the question is posed: what advantage then has the Jew? Or what profit is there of circumcision? Paul goes on to say, much every way, chiefly because that unto them were committed the oracles of God. This is where God was able to communicate to the people to which they will communicate to the rest of the world. So knowing who God's people are today is very relevant. What I want to explain and show you all today is that, brothers and sisters sitting here, you are the biblical Israelites. You are the Jews that the scriptures speak of. Israel is mentioned in the Bible over 2,500 times. The scriptures contain Hebrews' entire history. In fact, no other people on the face of the earth have such an extensive written record of their history. Not even the ancient Egyptians. I'm going to say that again. Not even the ancient Egyptians. Everything that we need to know about the ancient Hebrews is contained in Scripture. Now, we'll say, well, I'll start here. What's your nationality, good brother?
American.
You're American, okay. But it says, sister, what's your nationality? Yes, ma'am. You're American, okay. Interesting concept here. All right. Who were you before you were American?
African.
I like that answer. I like that answer. We're going to find out here because a lot of the names that we associate with today have no root in history. These are fairly new terminologies that have come up. American, Italian, Russian, Brazilian. They're all bywords. Okay? Ecclesiastes, the 4th chapter, the 16th verse says, there is no end of all the people, of all that have been before them, they also that come after them shall not rejoice in him. So, the scripture said that there is no end of all the people, even of all them that have been before them. So, whoever existed in the past, they exist to this day. There's no end to the people. And that's why I started off with asking the question, who are you? Who are you? Because prior to us being named Americans, we had an identity. In fact, if you look up and research Leo Scipio Africanus, you understand that he defeated Hannibal in the Second Punic War. During that time, he conquered the continent of which we know as Africa today. But that wasn't the original name of the continent. In fact, the reason that we're called African Americans and the people of that continent are called Africans is due in part to the fact that Leo Scipio Africanus conquered that continent. The reason why we're called Americans in this day and age is because of a man by the name of Amerigo Vespucci, who landed here on the shores of America 15 months prior to Columbus, before Columbus even arrived. So what did they do? They named this land after Amerigo Vespucci. Okay? You got Zondervan for me. Zondervan's Compact Bible Dictionary. It goes back to the brother's response. He said that we were Africans. So that becomes my question. Are we Africans? Well, let's see what the Bible has to say.
Ham.
Now, are you familiar with the flood story, right? Noah, 3 sons, right? Okay.
All right. Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood, he became the progenitor of the dark races.
Stop right there. So Ham, the youngest son of Noah, according to scholars, became the progenitor or the forefather of the dark races. But what?
Not the Negroes.
But not who?
Not the Negroes.
Ham became the progenitor of the dark race people, but not the Negroes. Very interesting. But who?
But the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites.
So we see here, Africans consisted of 4 African families. You had Cush, which we know as today as the Ethiopians. We have Canaan, which we know today as the South Africans. And you have Mizraim. That word is going to mean a lot here shortly. Mizraim, or what we would call the Egyptians. And Foot, the people of Libya. But not the Negroes. A lot of us, as so-called Negroes in America, tend to identify as Egyptians. Somehow the scholars understand something that we don't. Okay? So we're going to go on. We're going to find out a little bit more. Because that word Negro, anybody speak Spanish?
Pequito.
Un pequito? How do you say black? ¿Cómo se dice black in Spanish?
Negro.
Negro. Right? Negro means black. Right? What's this word right here? Oops. What's this word right here?
Niger.
Niger? That's how you pronounce it?
Or Niger. Black.
It means black. Negro, Spanish, means black. This word is black in Latin. In the Latin. We see if we look into the Strong's Greek lexicon, G3526, we see that it's the original, or the origin of it is the Latin, and it means Negro or Negro, which means black. And the recipients of that title, according to the scriptures, were the Hebrews. Let's get the book of Acts chapter 13. The book of Acts, the 13th chapter, in the first verse. Let's see what we've overlooked for years.
Book of Acts, chapter 13, verse 1.
Come on.
Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger.
Wait a minute. Somebody said, well, you know what? Maybe that's just the King James Version of the Bible. That's why I'm going to bring forth the New Living Translation as well. But read it from the top.
Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger.
Oh, go ahead.
And Lucius and Cyrene.
And Lucius of Cyrene. I want you to keep Cyrene in mind as well. Okay? Go ahead.
And Manon, which had been brought up with Herod and the Tetrarch.
The Tetrarch.
Tetrarch and Shaul.
Now, I know that this right here is a little bit blurry. Okay? But it says here that Simon was surnamed Niger in Acts the 13th chapter. When you go into the definition of it, it means swarthy. Swarthy. Or dark complexion. That's interesting. Very interesting that the early members of the church, New Testament church, that were referred to by this byword that many of us have heard today, these were the early prophets. And according to the definition, it means swarthy. It means dark complexion. This is Acts chapter 13, verse 1, New Living Translation. It says, among the prophets and teachers of the church at Antioch of Syria were Barnabas and Simeon, also called the black man, and Lucius from Cyrene. Now, here I have a map to show the dispersion of the Israelites on the continent of Africa. Okay? Right here in this area we have Cyrene. Okay? Let me blow this up for you so we can see. So the Israelites, the children of Israel, were scattered in all directions. The slaves that were brought to America are the descendants of those scattered. And I'm going to prove that today. Cyrene, 125 AD. The Israelites attempted to establish a Hebrew African empire. Roman suppression forces furthered the Israelite migration further into Africa. Now, when we look at geography, what we'll begin to understand is that the land that they call Israel is actually a part of the continent of Africa. It's Northeast Africa. They sit on the same tectonic plate. Okay? We see here, Elephantine, 600 BC. Israelites established a garrison. In 70 AD, the Romans conquered and enslaved over 100,000 Israelites. Documented history. But this has been hidden. It's not taught in our learning institutions today. Okay? Ethiopia, 955 BC. We see Menelik, who the descendants there claim descent from King Solomon. Uganda, a line of 33 kings, tracing their lineage to King David. Libya, 640 AD. Israelite queen Dia Kahana organizes an army to defend against Roman and Arab incursions into North Africa. What we see here is that our people had set up localities throughout the continent. Okay? This right here is a brother from Nigeria. Okay? In this video I'm about to play, this brother emphatically insists that he is not Nigerian. If you know somebody from Nigeria, ask them about the separation in Nigeria. There's a separation between northern Nigerians and southern Nigerians. Not just because of geographic location, but because of ethnicity. Okay? The fact that the Igbo tribe migrated from Israel was first identified by early Europeans that touched the shores of Nigeria. The traditions that were practiced by the Igbo tribe were similar to those practiced by the Israelites of the scriptures. The Institute, and these type of research that we're bringing forth is not just a group of brothers. Not saying that our scholarship is questionable, but what I want to show you is that Europeans have brought forth this information. Jewish, so-called Jews have brought forth this information. Google it. Go on YouTube. There's tons of videos that'll show Caucasians or people of European descent telling our people, come back to your heritage. Your identity has been stolen from you. Okay, give me Jeremiah 17 chapter. So the Institute for Jewish Studies concluded that there has been a clear continuity of Jewish identity among the Igbo in Africa. This is what the researchers have found. What you got?
Jeremiah 17, verse 1.
Read up. 4, verse 4.
Verse 4. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue.
Now, this is a prophecy through the prophet Jeremiah. Said, even you, all of us, ourselves, go ahead.
Thou shalt discontinue from thine heritage.
It say that we will be discontinued from our heritage. This is why when you ask, what's our nationality? You're going to get a multitude of responses. Somebody going to say I'm black. Somebody say I'm American. Somebody say I'm African American. Somebody may say I'm a Negro. Somebody may, somebody may just identify as a human because they have no idea who they are.
Discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies.
Wait a minute. Not only will we be discontinued or cut off from our heritage in understanding who we are as a people, what did it say?
I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger.
So you want to know how we got here to America? It's because we were disobedient. We were scattered to the four corners of the earth. Okay? Watch this.
Everyone needs to go his hometown and you know where you come from and where you come from. Because if you watch what is happening in this country, many people here now don't know where they come from and where they belong. Everybody just, as we are seeing ourselves, call ourselves, we are the same. We are not the same.
He said we are not the same.
We are not the same. Yeah, we are not the same. But why do you think so? If you look at you, you know that I'm not from Nigeria. I'm an Israel.
This is a brother in Nigeria saying, I'm not Nigerian. I'm from Israel. And this is him talking to another brother on the continent of Africa. Let's find out.
From Israel. Yeah. I didn't know. Can you speak the language from Israel? The language of Israel? Yes. If I speak the language of Israel, okay, can you understand the language? Well, just speak it so that I will know that it's something I don't know. So you believe we are not one in Nigeria? We are not in one Nigeria.
He said we are not one in Nigeria.
We know that we are not one Nigeria. People have been cheating us. That nothing, no Igbo man in a position, in a good position.
He said no Hebrew man is in a good position. So he's telling the brother clearly that even in our land in Nigeria, there's a distinction between one group of people and another group of people. And the brother here is explaining to this other brother exactly what that differentiation is. Okay? So again, this brother is very, very convincing. As you see, the brother is straight face, no smile, and he really means what he says. Okay? Too far. Okay? So when we look at the continent of Africa, what we understand is what I've provided is a partial list of various tribes throughout North, South, East, and West Africa, who are descendants of the Hebrews. Give me Babylon in Timbuktu by a very noteworthy scholar, a brother by the name of Rudolph R. Windsor. Rudolph R. Windsor. Okay? 90. Excuse me, 84. In a year?
In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter during the period of the military governors of Palestine. Many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people.
So, during this time when the Romans occupied and conquered Jerusalem, we see that from 65 BC, under General Pompey,